Okay, let's continue on Palo Alto Network's Application Research Center. Okay, everyone. So on our previous video, we took a look at creating application objects and groups. And we ended up that video discussing that there's a key item that we gotta discuss in order to properly configure application groups. If you want to classify traffic or identify traffic on your Palo Alto firewall based on applications, if you want to enforce access or deny access to a specific application, there's very much likely that you need to add dependencies for a specific application. So if, for example, we want to block Netflix, or we want to allow Netflix for a specific set of users, we want to create an application object and add that into the application group, most certainly we will need some dependencies that particular application object, in this case the Netflix application object, will not have. This is where Application Research Center or Applipedia comes into place. What is the Application Research Center? This is Palo Alto's central database of any application. I will call it the directory of where the Palo Alto firewall downloads and gets the update of all known applications, or I should say applications that were registered in the Palo Alto Network's Application Research Center database. So in order for Palo Alto to identify and police the traffic based on an application, it needs to understand what kind of information will the packet include, and then based on that information we can assign an identity, in this case and a specific application name, so we can know that the Palo Alto just saw this type of information in the packet, so let's treat it as this is application XYZ. So Palo Alto continues to update this on a daily, weekly basis, and there's times where you might need to have some dependencies added for a specific application in order for you to block it or allow it. Say, for example, Netflix. We want to allow Netflix, but there's a pretty good chance that Netflix is dependent upon another application or another service. Let me explain. Netflix has movies, and if you're familiar with Netflix, if you're out of the United States where I am from, Netflix is a paid video streaming cloud service that streams movies, documentaries, anything that has to do with films, and this includes showing the information about a specific movie. So, for example, you want to watch an action movie. The action movie, once you click on the poster or the icon, I should say, is going to show you information about that particular movie. Well, that information may be pulled from another site that is not Netflix, but Netflix does not have that hosted on their data centers. It needs to query Google, for example. So if you create an application group for Netflix and you don't add Google as the dependency, Netflix might not be able to load, because it's going to say, well, I'm able to reach Netflix data centers, but I'm not able to reach Google to pull the information about a specific movie, so the application will basically crash or it will not even load. And this is what we're here. We're here to take a look at Application Research Center or Applipedia, and then identify what dependencies we might need to add to a specific group so we can allow the traffic and the application object and group will be properly configured, and it will be efficient, or I should say it will be effective once you apply the policy. So we're just going to get started, and we'll review Application Research Center and we'll go from there. Let's go ahead and Applipedia, paloaltonetworks.com. Once we're on applipedia.paloaltonetworks.com, this is, by the way, this is free. This is completely open. This is where you're going to be finding that information that you need to create groups. So we're going to search YouTube. We're going to press enter. And sure enough, if you can see by just typing YouTube, there's so many dependencies of YouTube. So there's other websites that they use YouTube to show their content. So if, for example, you decide to block Quick or block those sites, for example, Flexwagon, Dailymotion, if you block it, but then YouTube is still allowed, they might not go to the website, but you might be able to access the videos. In our case, we see that we want to block YouTube. Okay, so YouTube, it's basically, this is the global object. Inside that object, you have every single dependency for YouTube. Okay, so let's go ahead and see. So right now we have YouTube, and this includes posting, which is collaboration, YouTube TV, YouTube TV streaming, YouTube Base. you're gonna see everything base. This is like the default or like the primary object for an application. But guess what? This is what I was talking to you about. Depends on other applications. So even though that you, for example, want to allow YouTube for certain individuals but block for everyone else, you gotta make an application group and not only add all those dependencies for YouTube, but also you need to add Google Base, because it depends on Google Base. And this is why Applepedia will be your best friend for this case. You're going to find out what dependencies are needed to allow or deny YouTube. So in this case, it's telling us that it's Google Base. So now I know that once I add YouTube, I also need to add Google Base, right? So that tells me that Google Base is a must in order for YouTube to work properly. So let's go ahead and go back, and we're going to add YouTube. We're going to type YouTube, okay? And we're just going to add this, which basically adds everything that is below the subcategory. So basically everything that is inside YouTube is going to be added. So we're just adding YouTube. And then remember, we went to Applepedia. We then want to see what's dependent for YouTube. And then if you click Base, it depends on Google Base. So let's go ahead and add Google Base as well. Oh, by the way, do we need dependency upon the other ones? Yes, but remember, I told you, everything that is base, it usually, everything that is dependent on the application, it depends on the base. So everything that's -base will be the base service that needs to be added in order for everything to work for that particular application. So in this case, YouTube -base will be your base application object that you need to add in order for everything to work. So we should be good. Everything is dependent upon YouTube Base, but then YouTube Base is dependent upon Google Base. So that's why you need to go to Applepedia, and they call it the Application Research Center, but I call it Applepedia. You know, sounds more cool. And then you find that information there, and for sure that you know that that policy is going to work because of dependency. So let's go ahead and add that. And we now know that we need to add Google Base. So basically we type Google, and we should be able to see that Google Base right here. By adding those two, now we can for sure know that this group is going to work properly. Now we just need to make a security policy and add this as my application and either allow it. So once you have that, you're gonna have a policy that you know is going to work because all dependencies for that YouTube group are added. So that's in a nutshell. We're going to look in section 3. We're going to create some security rules, and we're going to do one of the rules is going to be meant for application groups. And why not do it with this particular YouTube group? I'm going to show you how to create an application policy to allow traffic for a specific group of people, because we're going to look at user groups and user objects. So we're going to make a user object, and then we're going to make a user group, and then we're going to create a policy to allow a specific user group in your network to reach YouTube, and then everyone else is denied. So this is obviously something very important. And what did we forget to do after we create something or we configure something on the Palo Alto? Commit. Alrighty. Okay, everybody, so we just finished reviewing the Application Research Center, or Applepedia. This helped us finish that application group and enforce an application firewall rule. In our next video, we're gonna look at creating user objects and groups.